welcome. Inspector General of Police explains structure and operation of community policing, says advisory committees are being set up across all states and local governments to identify able-bodied persons for recruitment. Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom reiterates call for review of gun licensing policy to allow responsible citizens carry sophisticated weapons for self-defense. Abducted women in Rivers State rescued from a well 3 days after being dumped there by her kidnapper. And Russian doctors treating critic Alexei Navalny have a change of heart, agreed to allow comatose patient to be flown to Germany. Plus we'll have business, sports, and later on news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Federal Inland Revenue Service kicks against issuance of pioneer status certificates to undeserving companies in key fields.
And on sports news, Sevilla beat Inter 3-2 to win UEFA Europa League for a record 6th time.
The Inspector General of Police, Mr. Muhammad Adamu, has been explaining the operation of the community policing structure in the country. At a news conference to mark the first year of the Ministry of Police Affairs, Mr. Adamu said the community policing advisory committees are being set up across the 36 states of the Federation and all the local government areas of the country. The committees are expected to identify able-bodied persons that will be trained as community police officers.
As part of measures to contain insecurity in the country, the federal government approved the sum of 13.3 billion naira for the takeoff of community policing across the country. At the last meeting of the National Economic Council, its ad hoc committee on security and policing made the presentation on the operationalization of community policing in the country. At this event to mark 1 year of the creation of the Ministry of Police Affairs, the Inspector General of Police explains the structure and operation of the initiative.
The idea and what we are implementing is that the community should take responsibility for policing their communities at a certain level. And the implementation has gone far. So far, we have inaugurated State Community Policing Advisory Committee in all the states of the Federation. This committee are the ones to help us identify within the wards, the villages, and the towns their own citizens.
Speaking on the achievements of the ministry in the last 1 year, the Minister of Police Affairs reveals plans by the federal government to revive the National Public Security Communications System.
We have taken the task of resuscitating the gigantic 470 million National Public Security Communication System network that will generate thousands of well-paying jobs when it is fully implemented. In line with the Federal Government Executive Council conclusion, a concessionaire and baseline auditors were appointed to reassess and re-evaluate the project so as to prepare a new business case for consideration by the government. While on this project, and by the grace of God, we will make efforts to ensure that this project come to realization by the grace of God.
The minister explains that technicians are already inspecting the closed-circuit television cameras for repairs, and an assessment report is expected soon.
And there are more reactions to the 13 billion naira approved for community policing by the National Economic Council. Mr. Abe Agiole, a former commissioner of police in Kaduna State, is of the opinion that the police have got to earn the trust of the people if the initiative is to achieve the desired result. He was a guest on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily.
when we make available certain amounts for the police force, are we certain that this wholesome amount will be released to the police force? And then, if such money is made available, what are the plans on ground for the usage of this money? In community policing, we must first of all gain the trust of the people. Then when we're talking of training of these policemen, what kind of training do we offer them? Because we are going to start performing responsibilities away from the usual traditional policing system. So these police officers charged with these responsibilities must be conditioned to meet up with these challenges. We have about 774 local governments. Over the past years, have we made our presence felt? When we speak of community policing, have the community actually felt our presence? Have we been able to build the trust between us and the communities? Until these are done, we cannot count that we have succeeded in this aspect of community policing.
Meanwhile, Governor Samuel Ortom of Benue State has commended the federal government for approving 13 billion naira as the takeoff for community policing. He says insecurity across the country remains a major problem that must be tackled without religious or political sentiments. Governor Ortom was speaking at a news conference in Abuja, where he also restated the call on the federal government to upgrade the policy on gun licensing in a way that will allow responsible citizens carry sophisticated weapons for self-defense.
I'm not calling for a new policy of government. I'm just asking for an upgrade of the existing policy on gun licenses in our country, Nigeria. Because of the level of sophistication of criminal activities, banditry activities, and terrorism that is going on. At least if the criminals know, the bandits, the terrorists know that where they are visiting to attack, to kill, to destroy property, and steal, that people around there too may have sophisticated weapons like they have, then they will caution themselves. That call was from my heart and is my own way of genuinely calling on government to see if they can issue licenses. Insecurity is a major problem in Nigeria today. It is not hunger. Nobody is talking about the economy again. Where you're not safe, how can you do investment? How can you go and borrow money from the bank and invest where you know that your investment is not safe? And tomorrow you're killed. That investment is destroyed. The challenges we have today in Nigeria, I must say that they are beyond partisan politics. They are beyond individuals. They are beyond sentiments. They are beyond ethnicity. It requires all of us to come together to surmount it. It's not by keeping quiet, but it's by always speaking out.
And looking at security and prosecution, a chief magistrate court in Makurdi, the state capital, today remanded a member of the State House of Assembly in prison custody for alleged criminal conspiracy, armed robbery, and kidnapping. Mr. Jonathan Agbidye, who represents Katsina Ala East constituency, was remanded along with one Denzen Zwamo of Katsina Ala town for alleged crime. The police prosecutor, Fidelis Obobe, told the court that on May the 22nd, 2018, a van belonging to APIN Public Health Initiatives was snatched at gunpoint along Katsina Ala to Donga Road in Katsina Ala local government area. He said during investigation, the lawmaker and Mr. Zwamo were arrested with the vehicle, which has been re-registered in Makurdi. The prosecuting counsel asked the court for another date to enable the police complete their investigation. The trial magistrate, Isaac Ajim, adjourned the case to October the 12th, 2020. And over in Rivers State, a woman identified as Mrs. Chizoba Eke, who was declared missing, has been found inside a well at an uncompleted building in Igruta, Ikwere local government area. Mrs. Eke, a mother of two, was kidnapped from her home with a 6-month-old baby on August the 12th by one Mr. Chinedu, who is reported to have tricked the victim under the pretext that her husband wanted her to come to his house to collect some money. Luck, however, ran out on the suspected kidnapper as he was caught by the police with the victim's baby during a stop and search at a boundary community between Rivers and Imo states. The Rivers State Police Public Relations Officer, Mr. Nnamdi Omoni, has confirmed the incident, saying an investigation has already commenced into the matter. Away from that sad one now, the chairperson of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, is calling for an amendment of the country's labor laws to check the migration of Nigerians to other countries in search of work. She says girls who travel out of the country through agents do not know what kind of jobs have been planned for them. Mrs. Dabiri Erewa, who was speaking when she received the Senate Committee on Diaspora in her office, also called for an amendment to the Diaspora Act and the free flow of remittances from Nigerians in diaspora.
What Nigeria needs to do, we have to make illegal migration legal, and it's not difficult. It's not difficult. Okay, these girls coming from Lebanon. The case of those girls, they are not illegal immigrants. They go there, get proper visas. When they now get there, the agent has collected $2,000. So the girls will not get paid for another 6 months because the agent has collected their money. Then they don't know what work they are going to do. You get there, you have to go and take care of 6 children, sleep with the husband, wake up at 4 a.m., and they can't do it. So, like I told them, they are not prostitutes. They are hardworking women who are looking for means of survival. So, Nigeria, we need to strengthen our own labor law in such a way that those agents must be known, their contacts must be known, they must be registered. And then the girls going, you know what you are going to do. Like in the Philippines, part of the thing is you must give them a return ticket for a holiday once a year back to their country. And then whatever they are earning is documented, and a certain percentage even comes to the country. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. If Parliament can, we work with you to drive that whatever. But even before the law, if we have the political will, Labour, NAPTIP, we can stop all these people, being killed here and there. So we're glad to work with you in that regard, sir.
Now, it seems the dust is yet to settle as regards the new Company and Allied Matters Act assented to by President Muhammadu Buhari. While some leaders claim the new act will stifle business and socio-economic activities, the Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission explains that it aims at improving ease of doing business, transparency, and boosting the federal government's anti-corruption campaign. This report takes a look at the areas of concern raised by religious leaders.
The signing of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 into law by President Muhammadu Buhari on August 7, 2020 is supposed to herald Nigeria's most significant business legislation after 3 decades. Some provisions in the new CAMA 2020 have caused a debate, despite the federal government's narrative that the act will promote ease of doing business and reduce regulatory hurdles. One government agency at the forefront of the new act is the Corporate Affairs Commission, which has been given details and explanations to concerned clauses.
The powers under CAMA are not even as extensive as what we have under the Charities Act. So this is my explanation for this. It's not targeted at any particular group, but our laws have to be consistent with best practice. And as I have said, individuals, associations have a right to register or not to register. If you don't want to operate in line with CAMA, then don't register. Deal with your members as an individual.
Under the new act, a section states that religious bodies and charity organizations will now be strictly regulated by the Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission and the Supervising Minister. Section 839 states that the Commission can suspend the trustees of an association and appoint an interim manager to run the affairs. But the Christian Association of Nigeria has rejected the act, describing it as unacceptable, urging the federal government to stop the implementation of the law until the religious institutions are exempted from it. However, the new CAMA has other reforms that will tone down regulatory hurdles for businesses and associations. But with the issues raised so far, questions are, What will be the next line of action from the federal government amid the controversies trailing the new Karma Act?
You understand?
In part two, after the break, the federal government asked Pro-Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Ogundikwe, that's the Vice-Chancellor, and the Pro-Chancellor to recuse themselves from official duties pending the conclusion of a visitation panel. And we'll be joined by the National Superintendent of Kingsway International Christian Center, Pastor Femi Fasheru, to weigh in on the amended Companies and Allied Matters Act as it affects churches. That's all coming up in a moment. You join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Inspector General of Police explains structure and operation of community policing, says advisory committees are being set up across all states and local governments to identify able-bodied persons for recruitment. Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom reiterates call for review of gun licensing policy to allow responsible citizens carry sophisticated weapons for self-defense. Abducted woman in Rivers State rescued from well 3 days after being dumped there by her kidnapper. And Russian doctors treating critic Alexei Navalny have a change of heart, agreed to allow comatose patients be flown to Germany. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Do subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or you can download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android, Fire TV, and Roku as well. Now let's get some more perspective on the recently passed Companies and Allied Matters Act. Earlier on, I spoke with the National Superintendent of the Kingsway International Christian Center, Pastor Femi Fasheru. I started by asking him for his reaction to the new law.
My understanding is that every church, every religious organization is already registered with the CAC. They've been regulated. You know, the churches are regulated. So you have some churches that are compliant, like our church, for example. We submit our management report, our accounting report on a yearly basis with the CAC. And, but however, with this Karma direction, it's going to create problems for the government itself in terms of, is the government ready to be able to handle the responsibility that comes with it? I don't know how many churches are in the Redeemed Christian Church of God. How many churches are there in CAC, the Apostolic Church, Cherubim and Seraphim, Celestial churches all over Nigeria? Do they have the workforce to be able to manage all these churches all over the country? That's number one problem that this Karma could create for the government itself. And also for on the church side as well, this is the church ready for it? The relationship between the government and the churches at this point in time, in terms of their trust, the trust that the church has in the government, unfortunately, it's not in credit at the moment. It's a trust deficit relationship. So somebody is saying, is this a way for the government to control the churches while the churches should be regulated? But
what is your biggest challenge with specific sections of the act, beyond saying that, I mean, some people have gone as far as saying that perhaps they're trying to snuff life out of the church. We heard from the registrar of the CAC today to say that that is not the case. What provisions are your biggest challenge at the moment?
At the moment, when you talk about sacking the trustees for suspicion of misconduct and replacing them in the interim with interim managers, who will constitute the interim managers? What will be the extent of the involvement of the interim managers? Were the stakeholders involved in all this arrangement?
Some people have said that this is not any different from what we see in other parts of the world where the church is regulated to some extent, and that this is just something that we're trying now to see how we can better organize the system. You don't agree with them that this is something that occurs in other parts of the world?
This is not exactly what happens in the other climes. As you know, our church in the United Kingdom had gone through this with the charity commissions in the UK, where they felt that there was misconduct. So they came in with the interim managers. The interim managers were only restricted to things that has to do with governance. They were not involved in the issues of spirituality at all. And at the end of the day, when they found out that there was no misconduct whatsoever, they left and handed over the governance of the church back to the church. This is not clear from what is being said here. I think what we are hearing so loud here is the fact that trustees are going to be removed and then interim managers are going to come in. Who are the interim managers? What are they going to be doing when they come in? This is not exactly what it is over there. And in fact, the problem this has created in other climes like America, like United Kingdom, is making all these churches, all these branches, to go and register their own trusteeship. This is going to be a big problem in Nigeria.
Finally now, what's the way out of this controversy? You spoke earlier about the fact that perhaps the key stakeholders were not carried along, as we say in this part of the world. What do you think should be the way out of this controversy for there to be peace while this goes through?
I think the government should step down the execution of this this act for now. It should be stepped down. I think the stakeholders should be brought to the table, and for the gray areas of it to be well defined, so that trust can be built between the church and the government. Once that is done, and the government understands clearly what the government is, the church rather understands what the government wants to do to make sure that this is not about control. If it's regulation, that is fine, and yes, the churches need to be regulated. I agree with that. The churches need to make some adjustments. Yes, but they can sit down at the table, and this is not something that this is a matter of spirituality. It's not something somebody is just going to come and bring an act and say they want to control the church. It will not work.
All right. National Superintendent of the Kingsway International Christian Center, KICC, Pastor Femi Fasheru, thanks a lot for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
There's a new twist in the ongoing imbroglio at the University of Lagos as the federal government directs the warring parties, that's the Pro-Chancellor of the university, Dr. Wale Babalakin, and the Vice-Chancellor of the institution, Professor Oluwatoyin Ogundipe, to recuse themselves from their official duties pending the outcome of the special visitation panel set up by the President. The latest directive is coming after the Vice-Chancellor was asked to step down following allegations of mismanagement leveled against him by the university's governing council, which attracted a lot of backlash from several quarters. The Alumni Association of the university also waded into the matter, insisting that the action taken by the Pro-Chancellor did not follow due process and therefore did not merit recognition for the removal of the Vice-Chancellor. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has destroyed a consignment of 20,000 kilograms of illicit drugs valued at over 2 billion naira. The agency's chief executive officer, Colonel Mustafa Abdallah, and the Borno State Governor, Babagana Zulum, both supervised the process. Governor Zulum says he's worried about the rising rate of drug consumption among students in secondary schools.
A recent data from National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has it that an estimated 4 million Nigerians abuse drugs and other illicit substances. The northern part of the country is said to be fast becoming the epicenter, making it a money spinner for people who have found a market in Borno State and indeed border towns. The NDLEA makes its biggest breakthrough in many years since the insurgency began, seizing drugs worth billions of naira.
The drugs we are burning here today has a total weight of 19.234 kilograms. That is, it is over 19 tons. It's in billions of naira. What we are witnessing today is an indication of the commitment of the Chairman Chief Executive of NDLEA in ensuring that illicit trafficking and abuse of drugs is eliminated in Nigeria.
The agency's chairman and chief executive, Mustafa Abdullahi, said this bust is a major boost in the fight against trafficking and drug abuse, which he ascribed to the security challenges in the country.
The symbolic importance of this event is to ensure that all seized drugs are permanently put out of circulation and stopped from doing any further harm to our society.
New policy initiatives are therefore underway to ensure that the country overcomes the twin problems of illicit trafficking and drug abuse. The Borno State governor believes the circulation and usage of illicit drugs is a major fuel for violence and terrorism.
More disturbing is the growing surge in the number of students in secondary schools and tertiary institutions who take these modifying drugs. These are our children and they are the future leaders of our great nation. Urgent steps must be taken to save the future of our state and nation.
The seized drugs comprises of cannabis sativa, a variety of psychotropic substances, cocaine, and heroin.
In Rivers State, Governor Nyesom Wike is calling on international oil companies to relocate their headquarters to the areas of operation in the Niger Delta region. He disagrees with the claims that the region is unsafe for investors, insisting that insecurity is a global challenge. The governor was speaking when the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, in company of the NNPC Group Managing Director, Mr. Mile Kyari, paid him a courtesy visit in Port Harcourt. Our correspondent Jeffrey Uzongo reports.
The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Mr. Timipre Silva, and the board of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, led by the Group Managing Director, Mr. Mile Kyari, are Governor Nyesom Wike's latest guest at the Government House in Port Harcourt, the River State capital. The minister, who explains that the team is here to visit the Port Harcourt refinery, also reiterates the need for adequate security in the Niger Delta region to allow for smooth operations of the oil and gas sector.
We should try to get oil companies to move to their areas of operation, which I believe is legitimate and which is what should happen. But one of the problems we have to grapple with before that can happen is security. You are the Chief Security Officer of River State, and therefore I thought I should mention this before I close, that it should be our responsibility as Niger Delta people to try to calm the place. You're doing well, but I think there is still a lot more to be done in this area.
Governor Nyesom Wike, however, disagrees with the minister on the security status of the region, insisting that insecurity should not be an excuse by multinational oil companies to avoid siting their headquarters in the region of their operations. The governor also sought for partnership of the NNPC in the dualization of the road along the Port Harcourt refinery.
All over the world, in history, all over the world, there is security everywhere. We must not fall into the temptation of the oil companies. I was saying that because of insecurity in Niger Delta, who are those causing the insecurity in Niger Delta? Who are those? We must not fall into that temptation of saying, insecurity, cannot. No, it's not true. There's insecurity in Lagos. There's so much insecurity, kidnapping, and robbery, everything in Lagos. Because we come from a minority area, they begin to project as if there's so much insecurity in Niger Delta. It's not correct. I don't agree with them. But why is there no insecurity in the drilling of the oil? Why are they not kidnapping them when they're drilling oil? What will I do security when they say, move down to where you are delivering? My brother, Minister, no, I don't agree with that insecurity issue.
The call on multinational oil companies to relocate their headquarters to the Niger Delta region has been on for a while. And with insecurity no longer the bane of the region, they could consider looking into the renewed call by the River State Governor and other leaders of the region. Jeffrey Uzongo, Channels Television News.
When the news at 10 returns, Federal Inland Revenue Service kicks against issuance of pioneer certificates to undeserving companies in key fields. That's on Business News. But join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. The Department of State Services has invited 10 leaders of the All Progressives Congress for a meeting on Saturday, August the 20th, 2020, at its Benin City office in Edo State. Although the agenda of the meeting was not disclosed, it's believed to be in relation to the September the 19th Edo State governorship election. In the letter addressed to Mr. Tony Adun, who is also known as Kabaka, the DSS directed him to come with the national chairman of the Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria, as well as APC leaders in Oredo, Ikwabaoka, Ovia, southwest local government areas of the state. And still on the run-up to the September the 19th governorship election in Edo State, the All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party are accusing each other of plans to cause mayhem during the exercise. The latest is coming from the spokesperson of the APC Campaign Council, Mr. Patrick Ogbayabo, who accused the PDP of amassing arms and ammunition ahead of the polls. And this comes just some days after the PDP also accused the APC of sponsoring violence and planning to clamp down on its members in Edo State.
Our governors who are still sitting.
Election campaigns are ordinarily meant to sell candidates and win the minds of the electorate on election day. However, for almost 1 month since the campaigns for the Edo State governorship election started, it has been more of a war of words between the two most prominent political parties, the All Progressives Congress, APC, and the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Both the PDP and the APC have also accused each other of actions capable of causing violence on election day.
Our national campaign invites Nigerians to know that this is the reason the APC candidate, Osage Yamu, is not campaigning, but rather mobilizing his group of thugs, cultists, and hoodlums, lions and tigers, as seen in the viral video. Nigerians should also take note of this reckless plot for chaos on election day by Yamu, who is plotting to import violence, unleash bloodletting, and derail the state because he has been rejected by the people.
We have it on good authority that the Edo State government and members of its kitchen cabinet have drawn up a list of prominent APC leaders across Edo State that they have targeted for maiming, physical assault, assassination, kidnapping, and sponsored robbery attacks. There have been multiplication of firearms given to mobilized thugs, as if firearms have become political chewing gums.
As the Edo State election campaigns get heated up by the day, apprehension over what lies ahead forces citizens to the streets, demanding nothing less than a free, fair, and credible exercise.
It is pertinent to note that provocations are now becoming more frequent and brazen in Edo State election. Our demands that the federal government must assure the people of Edo State and the international community that there will be peace and security in the September 19 election in Edo State.
Elections ought to be a political process that allows citizens to choose who will govern them. If this is true, as it should be, politicians should, as a matter of priority, put the people first, ahead of their political interests.
Meanwhile, the governor of Edo State says he needs more time to complete ongoing projects in the state, as well as start up new ones, and that's the reason he's seeking a second term in office. Governor Obaseki said this during the PDP campaign in Esan West local government area, where the party spoke of its chances of winning the September the 19th governorship election after receiving defectors, including a governorship candidate.
The commissioning of the reconstructed 7.1-kilometer Idumebo-Ihumudumu Royal Market Road and the 2.3-kilometer Ujuele Road, both in Ekuma, is the first assignment for the PDP campaign team in Esan West local government area. The federal lawmakers in the delegation are given the task of cutting the tapes.
Commission this road in the name of God the Father, in the name of God the Son, in the name of God the Holy Spirit.
There is more to do in the day's schedule. It's straight to the ward rallies. From one venue to another, the campaign council takes center stage to deliver their speeches, the contents largely the re-election bid of Governor Godwin Obaseki. The PDP's governorship candidate on his part insists that it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Una say he get many roads when make I still construct. Una know wetin? Me, I ready to do my own. Una go do na own. Una go do na own. So you vote for me, I will work for you. You vote for me, I work for you. So on September 19th, make sure you come out.
The PDP says that it has been swelling its ranks with defectors along the campaign trail. Now, things get even better as they receive a rival in the Edo 2020 race, Accord Party's flag bearer, Idahosa Godday. In all, another successful day of canvassing for the PDP governorship campaign team.
Away from politics now, the National Lottery Trust Fund, through its funding intervention program in health, has donated vital medical equipment to the healthcare centre in Onikon, Lagos. The essence of the intervention, according to donors, is to deliver world-class equipment that's urgently needed to provide quality healthcare and save lives.
Onikon Health Centre, a 60-year-old health facility in Lagos Island, provides a range of medical services including obstetrics, gynecology and other maternal and child delivery services. The facility and its personnel see more than 100,000 patients in a year. With these statistics provided by the hospital, it has become pertinent for the centre to get an upgrade in terms of equipment. And that is why the National Lottery Trust Fund is stepping in with a donation of cardiotocography machine, phototherapy machine, neonatal incubator and other equipment for the improvement of care to patients.
To us in the Trust Fund, and indeed the entire lottery industry, we take pride in the realization that lottery good causes have arrived with the commissioning of these facilities, and the best of good causes in this country are yet to come.
Our efforts are focused on delivering revenue for public good causes or general welfare projects such as education, health, sports, natural disasters, and any other social development enterprises.
The commissioning is partially virtual. There are also guests at the facility who witnessed the groundbreaking event. With a symbolic handover of the equipment, the management of the healthcare centre says it cannot wait to put the new machines to good use for the benefit of the people.
One thing is for sure,
one thing is clear, the equipment they have brought are all equipment that we need, and about 80 to 90%, at least 80% will be commissioned to use immediately. By this afternoon, tomorrow morning, they will be sent to the various departments where we need it.
We are just simply responding to our mandate. It is part of what we are expected to do as an agency of government, to intervene in key critical areas. Health is amongst them.
The National Lottery Trust Fund promises to procure and commission similar projects across the country. In its innovative and pioneering approach to funding lottery, good causes which it believes will indeed help the government solve some of the challenges facing healthcare delivery in Nigeria.
The Nigeria Ports Authority has backed the Lagos Deep Offshore Logistic Base in its maritime, health, agriculture and logistics operations in Nigeria. Speaking to Channels Television after a tour of Ladol's facility, the Executive Director, Marine and Operations, Mr. Onari Brown, says he's impressed with the infrastructure development in Ladol, adding that the company's heavy lift capacity makes it a destination of choice.
Away from the hustle and bustle of the streets and unknown to some of you is another thriving contributor to the nation's economy, variously now referred to as the blue economy. The maritime space is up and running. So on this occasion, the Executive Director Marine Operations for the Nigeria Ports Authority, under whose ordinance these folks operate, is visiting Ladol Logistic Base at the Lagos Harbour. Having served and continues to serve the fabrication, integration and logistics needs for the oil and gas industry, and now branching off to more wins, it is time to see and hear what Ladol is up to.
With the crane capacity and the small fabrication capacity we have, we'll be able to support affordable housing companies to come in. And these are the sorts of companies that manufacture modular affordable housing.
These heavy lift cranes, the biggest around town, is another Ladol's bait as it progresses towards building the world-first sustainable industry special economic zone, using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to build a unique circular ecosystem serving a range of industries.
We started by servicing the largest industry in Nigeria, where we lowered the cost by half. In our next phase, which started this year, we'll be servicing a range of industries. As you rightly said, that will include agric, which everybody knows, but we will also be looking at modular housing development and upskilling.
Quite impressed with what I have seen on ground. So we can see operators that are actually contributing to the economy, who share the vision of the present administration in terms of non-oil export and then all oil business that will improve our economic standing.
Human capital development, community development is key, says Ladol, and that impresses the visitor.
What they have put in place that we are all impressed with is this isolation bay, especially in this era that we are, in this COVID-19 era. And it's a facility that has the capacity to take up to 36 persons who are coming on crew change and who are also servicing the ports and the offshore platforms.
The footnote, according to management, is the work in becoming a blueprint for the sustainable industrialization of Africa, turning Africa's demographic dividend into a global wealth creation.
Hello and welcome to Business News. The Federal Inland Revenue Service has vowed to plug tax revenue leakages through the pioneer status incentive schemes of government in order to generate more revenue for the nation. The service, in a statement, explains that it has discovered the issuance of pioneer status certificates to companies that are not pioneers of their fields, thereby leading to loss of considerable tax revenue. While an audit of the finding is ongoing, the FIRS plans to withdraw certificates issued to undeserving companies in violation of the law. Well, it's a positive close for the week at the Nigeria stock market, with Friday's trading session ending in the green, and that's despite investors' profit-taking interest in the banking sector. Temple Ashaju has the details.
Thank you for joining us again on the Stock Market Report. The equities market extended gains till the last trading session of the week as price appreciation in major brewery stocks helped to moderate the overall market picture despite the profits taken by investors cashing out in the banking sector. Now, today we saw a 0.07% gain in the index, which translated, of course, to some billions of naira in addition to the equity capitalization of the market, which is still around the 13 trillion naira market cap. Now, on the sectoral front, we have investors' interest in champion breweries and, of course, international breweries that ends the consumer goods sector, a 1.06% gain, while the buy side that we saw on Lasaco Insurance, which was higher by 10% today as well, gave a boost to the insurance sector. And of course, the market is expected to open next week with a mix of bargain hunting and, of course, profits taking as the Tier 1 banks that investors had expected to turn in their half-year earnings this week didn't show up with those numbers. And that's your stock market report. I'm Temple Ashaju.
That's business news on the last trading day of the week. Thanks for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Russian doctors treating Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny, who fell into a coma after being ill on a plane, have changed their minds and agreed to let him be flown to Germany. The doctors in the Serbian city of Omsk had earlier insisted he was too ill to be moved. Let's now join Simon Pusey for other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Joe Biden has vowed to unite a deeply divided America and lead the country to overcome what he calls this season of darkness as he accepted the US Democratic presidential nomination.
Give people light.
The former US vice president said his rival Donald Trump had unleashed too much anger, fear and division on the country. The 77-year-old heads into the campaign with a clear and steady lead in opinion polls over the incumbent president, who will accept the Republican nomination for a second White House term at his convention next week.
It's time for us, for we the people, to come together. And make no mistake, united we can and will overcome this season of darkness in America. We'll choose hope over fear, facts over fiction, fairness over privilege.
Russian doctors treating Alexei Navalny, who fell into a coma after being taken ill on a plane, have changed their minds and agreed to let him be flown to Germany. The doctors in the Siberian city of Omsk had earlier insisted he was too ill to be moved. His supporters suspect he was poisoned and accuse the authorities of trying to cover up a crime. A medically equipped plane is waiting to take him to Germany for treatment. Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya has urged supporters to step up protests despite the intimidation from the authorities as prosecutors question her allies. In a new video address from exile in Lithuania, she said the August the 9th election was rigged by President Alexander Lukashenko and must be rerun fairly. Allies of Ms. Tikhanovskaya on the new Opposition Coordination Council have been summoned to the Belarusian Investigative Committee, accused of an illegal power grab. Michel Barnier, the EU chief negotiator for Brexit, has said that a post-Brexit trade deal between the UK and the EU seems unlikely. Speaking after the latest round of talks, Mr. Barnier said he was disappointed and concerned. His UK counterpart, David Frost, spoke of little progress amid differences on fisheries policy and state aid rules. The EU said it would like to agree on a deal by October so it can be approved by the European Parliament before the post-Brexit transition period expires on December the 31st this year. Former Donald Trump campaign manager Steve Bannon has pleaded not guilty hours after being arrested on fraud charges relating to the controversial border wall with Mexico. Federal prosecutors in New York allege Mr. Bannon received over $1 million from the online campaign to build the border wall with Mexico, at least some of which he used to cover hundreds of thousands of dollars in personal expenses. He has now been released on a $5 million bond, backed by almost $2 million in cash or real estate. Mauritius has announced it has started the process of sinking the Japanese-owned bulk carrier that ran aground spilling huge amounts of oil 2 weeks ago. The government said the ship's sinking will be done in a way that would avoid further pollution or interfere with maritime routes. However, scientists say the full extent of the spill is still unfolding and the damage could affect Mauritius and its vital tourism sector for decades. 2 of the ship's officers were arrested earlier this week on charges of endangering safe navigation. A Panama-flagged tanker, which is believed to have been hijacked, has been pictured in the Gulf of Aden off Somalia. 6 armed men seized the Aegean II late on Wednesday after it had engine problems. Earlier, Somali pirates had released 3 Iranian hostages held for 5 years. The 3 Iranians are the last of the crew of the Iranian fishing vessel FV Siraj, which was captured by pirates in March 2015. Kim Yo-jong, the influential younger sister of the North Korean ruler Kim Jong-un, has become his second in command. That's according to a South Korean intelligence agency. It's reported Kim Jong-un has ceded a degree of authority to his younger sister, who has risen through the ruling party ranks since accompanying her brother to his 2019 nuclear summit with Donald Trump in Vietnam. Experts speculate the move may be intended to reduce the strain on the leader, who was recently rumoured to have health issues. And finally, in Chile, a cougar made a surprise appearance in the metropolitan area of the capital, Santiago, after being spotted inside the patio of a home. The big cat, which is thought to have come down from nearby mountains overlooking the area, was described by witnesses as being disorientated and scared. Chile's Agricultural and Livestock Service used a tranquilizing dart to sedate the feline before taking it to the Metropolitan Zoo for a checkup and then releasing it back into the wild. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Spanish side Sevilla FC has won the Europa League for a record 6th time, thanks to a 3-2 victory over Italian side Inter Milan in a thrilling final played in Cologne, Germany. Romelu Lukaku gave the Italian side an early lead from the penalty spot for his 34th goal of the season. Luke de Jong scored 2 headers to put Sevilla into the lead, but Inter levelled when Diego Godin nodded in to make it 2-2 in the 35th minute. Later on, Lukaku diverted Diego Carlos' shot into the net in the 74th minute to earn Sevilla boss Julen Lopetegui his first trophy in his managerial career. Nigeria FA Cup champions Kano Pillars have confirmed they will not play their home matches for the 2020-21 CAF Confederation Cup at the Sani Abacha Stadium in Kano. The Kano State government has given approval for the team to look for alternative venues for their home games, as the Sani Abacha Stadium has been chosen as one of the COVID-19 isolation centres in the state. And that's a wrap on sports news.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. We can now bring you a bit more on the intervention of the federal government into the crisis rocking the University of Lagos, as we have more details now. And like we mentioned earlier, the government has asked the 2 men at the centre of the crisis, that's the Pro-Chancellor, Dr. Wale Babalakin, and the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Oluwatoyin Ogundikpe, to step aside pending the outcome of the special visitation panel set up by the President. The panel, which has 2 weeks to submit its report, is headed by Professor Tukuru Saad, while Barrister Grace Ekanem will serve as secretary. The directives are contained in a statement by the spokesman of the Federal Ministry of Education, Mr. Ben Gong. The statement also directs the University Senate to reconvene to appoint an acting vice-chancellor. And the main news again. The Inspector General of Police, Mr. Muhammad Adamu, today shed more light on the structure and operation of community policing. He explained that advisory committees are being set up across all states to identify able-bodied persons for recruitment. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Do have a great weekend and stay safe while you try to do that. Good night.